You used to wake up on a Saturday morning before anybody told you to. Nobody set an alarm, nobody shook you awake. Your body just knew. Because there was a bowl of cereal with your name on it, a TV nobody was fighting you for yet, and about 4 hours of cartoons before anybody in the house started making demands. You'd slide out of bed, pour yourself some Frosted Flakes, and I mean pour, like the bowl was a suggestion and the milk was an afterthought. And you'd park yourself on that carpet so close to the screen your mama would have lost her mind if she was up. But she wasn't up. That was the whole point. My name's Franklin, and I've been watching y'all for a long time. Not the grown version of you, not the one paying a mortgage or arguing about a 401k. I'm talking about the kid, the one who had a whole world outside that front door, a crew that didn't need a group chat to assemble, and a summer that stretched out so long you forgot what grade you were going into. If you were a black boy growing up in the late 70s or the 80s, you lived a life that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not saying that to be sad about it. I'm saying it because you probably haven't thought about some of this stuff in years. And you should, because that kid, he was having the time of his life. Let's start right there. Saturday morning. You had your spot. Everybody had their spot. Maybe it was the floor. Maybe it was the couch if you were the oldest or the fastest. Maybe it was that one chair that didn't match anything else in the living room, but nobody threw away because it was comfortable. In the lineup, you didn't pick it. The network picked it. You just showed up and took what they gave you. Thundar the Barbarian, Spider-Man and his amazing friends, the Smurfs, and yeah, you watched the Smurfs, don't act like you didn't. Super Friends, Muppet Babies. And if you were a certain kind of kid, you sat through the Schoolhouse Rock segments not because you wanted to, but because the remote was too far away and you weren't getting up. Nobody was scrolling. Nobody was skipping ahead. You watched what was on, and if it was whack, you sat through it because something better was coming in 30 minutes. And the commercials? The commercials were half the experience. That's where you built your Christmas list. Every toy commercial was a negotiation you were already having in your head. If I don't ask for the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, maybe I can get the Castle Grayskull and the Millennium Falcon. You were doing budget math at 8 years old and didn't even know it. By noon, cartoons were over, and that meant one thing: time to go outside. You didn't text anybody. You didn't call anybody. You walked outside and just waited. Or you went to somebody's house and yelled their name from the sidewalk. Didn't knock, didn't ring the bell. You just stood outside and hollered until they came to the door, or their mama stuck her head out the window and told you they couldn't come out. And if they couldn't come out, you went to the next house. Within 20 minutes, there was a crew. Could be 3 kids, could be 9, didn't matter. Once you had enough to pick teams, the day had officially started. And the games? You already know. Freeze tag, but not regular freeze tag. The kind where if you got tagged, you had to hold whatever position you were in, and somebody always froze in the most ridiculous pose on purpose, just to make everybody laugh. Somebody was always cheating. Somebody always said, "I wasn't ready." And there was always one kid who was so fast, nobody even bothered chasing him. He'd just stand there yelling, "Come get me," while everybody ignored him because what's the point? Red light, green light, running bases, kick the can, handball against the side of somebody's building. And if you had a hoop, even a bent one, even one with no net, even one nailed to a telephone pole at the wrong height, you played basketball until your hands were raw. Nobody organized any of this. There were no sign-up sheets, no parents standing on the sideline. You just showed up, figured out who was playing, argued about the rules for 10 minutes, and then played until somebody's mama called them home. And you could hear her from 3 blocks away. If you had a bike, you had freedom. Didn't matter what kind. You might have had a Huffy from Kmart. You might have had a mongoose your cousin outgrew. You might have had something with no brand on it at all, just a frame and 2 wheels and a chain that came off every 6 blocks. Didn't matter, because the bike wasn't the point. The bike was the vehicle. The point was where you went on it. And where you went was everywhere. You'd ride 4 neighborhoods deep with your boys, no destination in mind. Somebody heard there was a girl who liked somebody over on the next block. Somebody knew where there was a creek. Somebody said there was a store that sold firecrackers to kids. Most of the time it was all lies, but you went anyway because riding was the thing. The wind, the speed, the feeling that you were covering ground, going somewhere, even if you ended up right back where you started. No helmet, no phone, no ID, no plan. Your parents didn't know where you were, and honestly, you barely knew where you were. You'd end up on streets you'd never seen before, looking at houses that were nicer than yours or worse than yours, and you'd file that away in your head without even knowing you were doing it. You were learning the map of your world in real time, one pedal stroke at a time. And when the streetlights came on, That was the universal remote control. Didn't matter what you were doing. Didn't matter how good the game was. Didn't matter if you were winning. Street lights meant go home. You didn't question it. You didn't negotiate with it. You just went. Because whatever was waiting for you if you were late wasn't worth finding out about. Every neighborhood had one, and every kid knew that store better than they knew their own kitchen. You walked in with $1 and felt like you had options. And you did. Now and laters. And you had a flavor. Don't act like you didn't. Lemonheads, Jolly Ranchers, Alexander the Grape, Boston baked beans in that little box, Chico sticks, candy cigarettes, which nobody thought was weird at the time, jawbreakers the size of a golf ball that changed colors the more you sucked on them, quarter juices, you know the ones, the plastic barrel with the foil top you peeled back, great, fruit punch, something blue that wasn't a real flavor but you drank it anyway. And if that store had an arcade cabinet, you'd feed that machine quarters until you were broke. And then you'd stand behind whoever was playing and watch like it was ESPN, Double Dragon, Street Fighter, Pac-Man, Galaga. You'd be standing there with a now and later stuck to your back teeth, watching some kid you didn't even know try to beat a level you'd never seen. And you could have stayed there all afternoon, just watching, just waiting for your turn that might not come. The store owner knew every kid in the neighborhood, knew who stole and who didn't, knew whose mama would come back and make it a problem if she found out. Some candy was behind the counter. You knew why. And you knew which kid was the reason it got moved back there. The corner store was a checkpoint. You went there before you went anywhere. You stopped there on the way back. It's where you heard what was happening that day, who was fighting, who had a new bike, who was grounded, the neighborhood news feed before news feeds existed. Now let's talk about shoes, because if you were a black boy in the 80s, shoes weren't shoes. Shoes were a statement. Shoes were identity. Shoes were the first thing people looked at and the last thing they forgot. And the game was way bigger than Jordans. Yeah, the Air Jordan 1 changed everything when it dropped in '85. But you had Troop, British Knights, Avia. Clyde Drexler was rocking those and they were clean. Pony City Wings, which were basically Jordan knockoffs, but nobody cared because Spud Webb, 5'6", won the dunk contest in them and that was enough. LA Gear, which someone was wearing even if nobody would admit it now. The whole goal was to show up with something nobody else had. First day of school was a sneaker fashion show, and everybody knew it. You'd walk in scanning feet before you looked at faces. What you had on your feet told people something about you before you opened your mouth. Were you fresh? Were you trying? Were you the kid whose mama didn't play that? And if you had the wrong shoes, you knew it. You felt it. Not because anybody necessarily said something, but because you noticed. Boys notice, especially black boys in the 80s. You clocked shoes the way stockbrokers clock numbers, automatically, constantly. Some kids had 2 pairs, school shoes and outside shoes. And you already know what outside shoes were. The ones that were too beat up to wear to school, but too good to throw away. You played ball in those. You rode your bike in those. You ran through mud in those. And then one day, they just disappeared. Your mama threw them away while you were asleep, and you never saw them again. Summer was different then. And I don't mean different like things were simpler. I mean the actual quality of a summer day was different. It was longer. It was louder. It felt like it had more room in it. You woke up with nothing to do and somehow the day was full by 10 a.m. Somebody knocked on the door. Or you heard kids outside and that was your alarm. You threw on some shorts, maybe the same ones from yesterday. Nobody was checking and you were out. The fire hydrant. If you grew up in the city, you know. Somebody popped that thing open and the whole block turned into a water park. Kids running through the spray in their clothes. Cars driving through slow to get a free wash. Some old man on his porch shaking his head but not really mad. Popsicles from the ice cream truck. And you knew the truck by its song. You could hear it 3 blocks away and you'd sprint into the house, grab whatever change you could find between the couch cushions, on the dresser, in that jar nobody was supposed to touch, and you'd run back out barefoot across hot concrete because you were not about to miss that truck. And what'd you get? A bomb pop, a firecracker, a push-up, or that character-shaped ice cream with the gumball eyes that never looked like the picture. Mickey Mouse with a chipped ear, Ninja Turtle with one eye higher than the other. You didn't care. It was cold and sweet, and you earned it by being the fastest kid on the block. Music was everywhere, and you didn't have to look for it. Somebody's mama had the radio on. Not a playlist, not an app. The actual radio. WBLS, KISS FM, whatever your city had, and it played all day. You heard everything. Whitney Houston into Run DMC, into Luther Vandross, into LL Cool J. Nobody skipped anything because nobody could. You just let it play, and whatever came on became the soundtrack to whatever you were doing. Maybe somebody's older brother had a boombox, and that was power. The kid with the boombox decided what everybody listened to. He'd walk down the block with it on his shoulder like he was leading a parade, and in a way, he was. You learned rap lyrics by ear. Nobody looked them up. You just listened until you caught it, and if you got a word wrong, you said it wrong with confidence until somebody corrected you, and then you argued about it for 20 minutes. Mixtapes were currency. If somebody made you a tape, that meant something. If somebody let you borrow a tape, you guarded that thing with your life, because if it came back with the ribbon pulled out, that was a friendship-ending event. There were rules nobody wrote down, but every black boy knew. You don't go in somebody's house and open their fridge. You say yes ma'am and no sir to every adult, even if they're not your parent. If somebody's mama offers you food, you look at your friend first. He'll tell you with his eyes whether it's okay. You take your shoes off at the door. You don't sit on the furniture with your outside clothes. You don't run in somebody else's house. And when it's time to go, you say thank you, even if all you did was sit on the porch. These weren't suggestions. These were survival instructions disguised as manners. You didn't know why they mattered until you were grown, and then one day you caught yourself telling your own kid the exact same thing and realized, oh, that's where that came from. You already know this, but you probably haven't said it out loud in a while. You had a whole world. It ran on nothing but time and imagination. No apps, no algorithms, no content. Just you and your boys and a block that felt as big as the whole planet. And one day you grew up and the block got small. The store closed. The crew scattered. The bike ended up in somebody's garage and then just gone. But that kid is still in there. The one who could turn a stick into a sword, a curb into home base, and $1 into a whole afternoon. He's been quiet for a long time. Maybe let him ride for a minute. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.